When Myra's cruel boss ripped her shirt in front of the entire team to expose her medical bag, she thought her career was over. But what happened next will blow your mind. Myra was just a quiet office worker with a chronic illness, dreaming of becoming a designer. Every day, her boss Nina would humiliate her for needing bathroom breaks, calling her dramatic and lazy in front of everyone. Then came the day that changed everything. During a team meeting, Nina grabbed Myra's shirt and yanked it, exposing her handmade medical bag cover to the entire room. The laughter was deafening. Myra ran out, broken and ashamed. But Myra had a secret side hustle, a tiny YouTube channel with just 40 subscribers where she shared her knitting projects. What she did next with that channel would turn her biggest humiliation into her greatest triumph. Because 3 weeks later, Myra walked back into that same office building. But this time, she wasn't going to her cubicle. She was meeting with a CEO who wanted to make her rich. And when Nina saw her through the conference room glass, her jaw literally dropped. Stay tuned to see how one woman's worst day became the foundation of her empire. Myra often stayed late at the office, long after most lights in the building had blinked out. The city glowed far below, a silent, sparkling world she felt apart from. She was a simple woman, kind and introverted, content to do her work and dream her quiet dreams of one day becoming a designer. Her desk was always neat, her tasks completed with care. One Tuesday evening, as the clock on the wall ticked past 8, the hum of the computer seemed to grow into a deafening roar. The words on her screen blurred, then danced like angry fireflies. A sharp, twisting pain like a hot poker jabbed deep in her side. Myra gasped, her hand instinctively flying to her stomach. The room began to spin, the familiar gray carpet rising up to meet her. She reached for her desk, a desperate attempt to steady herself, but her legs felt like cooked noodles, giving way beneath her. Then everything went black. She woke slowly, confused by the persistent, rhythmic beeping and the clean, sharp smell that always meant a hospital. A doctor with kind, tired eyes sat beside her bed. He spoke in gentle tones, explaining the tests, the results. It was a chronic illness, he said, something that wouldn't go away, something she would have to learn to live with. To help her body function, she would need a medical aid, a small bag attached to her side, an ostomy. It would be there always, a visible, tangible sign of her body's struggle. Myra listened, numb, the doctor's words feeling like stones dropping into a deep well. An ostomy bag felt so foreign, so clinical. Her world had just been turned upside down. It makes you wonder, where are you all watching this from today? Let us know in the comments. Returning to work a few weeks later felt like walking into a different world. Or perhaps she was the one who was different. The office, once a place of quiet routine, now felt like a stage, and she was the unwilling star. Eyes followed her every move. Whispers like dry leaves skittering across the floorboards seemed to chase her down the hallways, especially when she made her now more frequent trips to the restroom. She heard snippets, half-formed words. So young. What do you think it is? Can she even handle the workload? HR had been officially understanding. They told her she could still perform her duties, of course. They would make some reasonable accommodations, they said. She could take more breaks, adjust her hours if needed. But the curious stares and the sudden silences when she approached didn't feel like an accommodation. They felt like a heavy blanket of judgment. Myra learned to pull her cardigans tighter, to make herself smaller, trying to disappear into the background. She just wanted to do her work, to sketch her designs in her worn notebook during her lunch break, to feel a flicker of her old self. But normal felt like a distant, sunlit shore she could no longer reach. Only Samuel, the office janitor, a man of few words and observant eyes, would sometimes offer a small, almost imperceptible nod of understanding. It was a tiny light, a single star in the growing darkness of her days. The whisper soon turned into something much uglier, much harder to ignore. Her more frequent trips to the bathroom, a necessity her illness demanded, did not go unnoticed. Some coworkers would exchange knowing, impatient glances whenever she quietly excused herself. Others would let out exaggerated sighs, especially if she had to leave during a team meeting. Nina, her team lead, seemed to take a special, cruel pleasure in highlighting Myra's condition. Nina was sharp-tongued, ambitious, and had a way of making everyone around her feel small to make herself feel big. If Mira seemed tired, her face pale from the constant, draining ache that lived inside her body, Nina would remark, loud enough for half the department to hear, "Having another one of your dramatic episodes, Mira? Try to keep it together, some of us are actually working." Or if Mira needed a moment to rest her eyes from the screen's glare, Nina would sneer, "Some people just look for any excuse to be lazy. The rest of us don't have that luxury." Each word was a tiny poison dart, finding its mark on Myra's already frayed spirit. One particularly bad afternoon, Mira was reaching for a heavy binder from a high shelf in the shared supply closet. Her cardigan snagged, and her shirt rode up just a fraction, just enough. A newer colleague, Mark, who always tried too hard to be part of the in-crowd with his loud jokes, caught a glimpse of the smooth, pale outline of her medical bag against her skin. Later in the break room, as Mira approached to heat her meager lunch, she heard Mark's booming voice. "You guys won't believe what I saw on Mira today." He snickered, surrounded by a few others. Looked like she was smuggling a juice pouch under her shirt, or maybe a tiny hot water bottle. Cruel, unthinking laughter followed, sharp and jarring. Mira froze just outside the doorway, her face burning with a deep, hot shame. Her hand flew to her side, as if to hide the offending part of her. She couldn't breathe. She turned and fled back to the relative anonymity of her cubicle, her heart pounding like a trapped bird against her ribs. The sound of their laughter echoed in her ears for the rest of the long, miserable day. What could she say? How could she possibly explain the relentless pain, the bone-deep exhaustion, the constant, gnawing fear that had become her shadow? So Mira said nothing. She ate her lunch when she could stomach it, alone at her desk, her forgotten design notebook lying unopened beside an untouched sandwich. The humiliation was a bitter, metallic taste in her mouth. She began to withdraw even further, building invisible walls around herself, brick by silent, painful brick. Her dreams of becoming a designer, once so bright and full of hope, felt silly now, childish and out of reach. Who would want designs from someone so obviously broken, so visibly flawed? The joy she once found in swirling colors and intricate patterns seemed to be fading, replaced by a dull, persistent grayness that mirrored the office carpet. Samuel, the janitor, with his quiet ways, noticed. Sometimes he'd leave an extra cleaning wipe on her desk, or he'd make a point to ensure her small trash bin was emptied, even if it wasn't full. Small, unspoken kindnesses. He never pried, never asked personal questions. He just offered a silent solidarity that meant more than any words could. Mira clung to these tiny gestures, small anchors in a turbulent sea of daily unkindness. She felt so utterly alone in that bustling, chattering office, a ghost haunting the edges of other people's normal, healthy lives. The click of her apartment door shutting behind her was the loudest sound most evenings. Home was a small, tidy place, but it felt empty, echoing with her unspoken thoughts. After the draining days at work, cooking a proper meal felt like climbing a mountain. So Mira often ate instant noodles or a piece of toast, standing by the kitchen counter. The effort to sit, to pretend it was a real dinner, was sometimes too much. Her body ached, a deep, weary pain that settled into her bones. The emotional toll of the day was just as heavy. Her only real comfort was her knitting. The soft wool, the rhythmic click of the needles, the way a simple string could transform into something beautiful and useful. It was a small magic she could control. She'd sit on her worn sofa, a blanket over her lap, and knit for hours. Scarves, little hats, intricate patterns that took her mind away from the office, away from Nina's sharp words and the curious stares. This was her quiet rebellion, her silent therapy. A few months ago, she had started a YouTube channel. It was a tiny corner of the internet where she shared her knitting projects. She called it Myra's Cozy Crafts. She had about 30 or 40 subscribers, mostly other quiet crafters from around the world. She'd set up her phone on a stack of books, her hands the stars of the show. She rarely showed her face, and never spoke about her illness or her life at work. It was just about the yarn, the patterns, the joy of making something. Uploading a new video, even a short one showing a finished project, gave her a tiny spark, a feeling of connection, however small. But some nights, even knitting couldn't hold back the tide. Tonight was one of those nights. After uploading a short video of a new stitch she'd learned, she put down her needles. The pain in her side was sharper than usual, a burning, insistent throb. And the other pain, the one in her heart, felt just as raw. The humiliation from the break room incident replayed in her mind. Tears welled up, hot and unexpected. She curled up on the sofa, pulling the blanket tighter, and finally let herself cry. The sobs were quiet at first, then grew, shaking her small frame. It was the pain of her body, yes, but also the pain of loneliness, of feeling misunderstood, of dreams slipping away. It was a small comfort, this little online space. If her quiet strength speaks to you, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. For now, Mira just wept, alone in her silent apartment, the city lights indifferent outside her window. A few weeks later, Mira found herself back at the hospital for a routine checkup. The familiar scent of antiseptic and the hushed sounds of the clinic usually made her anxious, but today felt different. As she sat in the waiting area, her knitting bag beside her, she noticed a young girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, sitting across from her. The girl looked pale and tired, and Mira recognized the subtle bulge under her t-shirt, similar to her own. Her heart went out to her. The girl was trying to untangle a mess of bright pink yarn, her small face puckered in frustration. Mira hesitated for a moment, then leaned forward. "Sometimes," Mira said softly, "it helps to find one end and gently pull, not too hard." The girl looked up, her eyes widening slightly. "I know you," she whispered, a small smile touching her lips. "You're Myra's Cozy Crafts. I watch your videos. You knit that really cool owl hat." Mira was stunned. Someone recognized her? Here. "Oh," she managed, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. "Yes, that's me." The girl's name was Tina. Her mother, sitting beside her, explained that Tina had a similar condition to Myra's. The crafts, especially Myra's gentle videos, had been a bright spot for Tina during her tougher days. "You helped me smile when I was scared in the hospital," Tina said, her voice now a little stronger. "I like your hands. They make pretty things." For the rest of their wait, Mira and Tina talked. Not just about knitting, but about how it felt to have tubes and bags, how some days were good and others were so hard. Tina showed Mira a little pouch she used for her own medical supplies, decorated with glitter glue and stickers. It was bright and cheerful, but also a bit clumsy. An idea like a tiny seed began to sprout in Myra's mind. What if these medical aids, these constant companions, didn't have to be hidden in shame? What if they could be beautiful, or at least more comfortable, more personal? When Myra's name was called, Tina waved. "Maybe you could knit a cover for my bag?" she asked shyly. "Something soft and colorful?" "I think," Mira said, a real smile reaching her eyes for the first time in what felt like ages. "That's a wonderful idea." Walking towards the doctor's office, Mira felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in months. The encounter with Tina was like a splash of vibrant color on the gray canvas of her life. She had connected with someone who understood. And more than that, a new purpose was starting to bloom, watered by a child's simple request and her own rediscovered passion for creating. This felt like more than just knitting, it felt like hope. Inspired by Tina, Mira spent her evenings designing and knitting. She created a soft, beautifully patterned cover for her own ostomy bag. It was discreet, yet elegant, made with fine, breathable yarn in calming shades of blue and green. It fit snugly and comfortably, transforming the clinical look of the bag into something that felt more like a part of her, less like an alien attachment. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of pride in something she had made for herself, something that addressed her own needs with creativity. She decided to wear it to work. It was a small act of courage, a tiny step towards reclaiming a part of herself. She wore a slightly looser blouse, but the cover gave her a sense of security, a feeling of being a little more whole. She hoped it would go unnoticed or at least not draw negative attention. But Nina had a way of noticing everything, especially when it came to Mira. During the mid-morning team huddle, Nina's sharp eyes scanned the room. They landed on Mira, narrowing slightly. Mira felt a familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. "Mira," Nina said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "is that a new fashion statement you're trying to make? What have you got bundled up under there today?" Before Mira could even think of a response, Nina reached out, her fingers hooking into the fabric of Myra's blouse near her side. With a swift, cruel tug, Nina pulled the material away. The movement was so sudden, so unexpected. Myra's handmade cover, and the top of the medical bag beneath it, were exposed for everyone to see. Gasps rippled through the small group. Then nervous, uncomfortable laughter started, led by Mark, who always seemed eager to please Nina. Someone else snickered. Mira froze, her face burning with a humiliation so intense it stole her breath. It was worse than the break room incident, so much worse. This was public, deliberate, and felt like a physical violation. Nina smirked, a look of triumph on her face. "Oh dear," she said, feigning innocence. "Just curious." Tears pricked Myra's eyes, hot and shameful. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The stares of her colleagues felt like physical blows. She wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Clutching her side, she turned and fled. She didn't stop at her desk, didn't grab her bag. She just ran, out of the meeting room, through the office, past the reception desk, and out into the cold anonymity of the street. The laughter, the surprised faces, Nina's smug expression. It all replayed in her mind like a horrifying movie. She left work midday, deeply, profoundly ashamed and broken. The beautiful cover, meant to be a symbol of her quiet strength, had become the instrument of her deepest public humiliation. Mira didn't know where she was going. She just walked, blinded by tears, the city noise a dull roar around her. The shame was a heavy cloak, suffocating her. Eventually, she found herself on a park bench, shivering, though it wasn't particularly cold. The memory of Nina's hand, the tearing sound of her blouse, the laughter, it was unbearable. The thought of facing those people again made her feel physically ill. How could she ever go back? She ended up calling the hospital's patient support line, her voice trembling. They suggested she come in just to talk, to have her bag checked after the incident in case the jostling had caused any issues. In the quiet calm of a small consultation room, a kind nurse named Sarah listened patiently as Mira, choking back sobs, recounted what had happened. Sarah's eyes were full of compassion. "Mira," she said gently, placing a comforting hand on her arm, "what that woman did was not just unkind, it was wrong. You have a right to be treated with respect, and to your medical privacy." Sarah helped her check her ostomy, which was thankfully fine, but the emotional damage was severe. "You are not defined by this bag, or by their ignorance," Sarah continued. "You are so much more than that." Sarah's words and her quiet strength resonated with Mira. For days Mira stayed home, unable to face the world. But Sarah's words kept replaying in her mind. "You are so much more." She thought of Tina and her brave young spirit. She thought of her little YouTube channel and the small community she had built. Hiding felt safe, but it also felt like letting Nina win. The next morning, Mira did something she never thought she'd have the courage to do. She called HR and in a steady voice told them everything. She detailed Nina's ongoing harassment, the specific incident of her shirt being pulled, the laughter, the deep distress it had caused. She didn't cry. She just stated the facts. The HR representative sounded shocked and promised an immediate investigation. Then Mira sat down at her small kitchen table, set up her phone and pressed record. This time she didn't just show her hands. She showed her face. She spoke directly to the camera, her voice a little shaky at first, but gaining strength. She talked about her chronic illness, showed her ostomy bag, and then with a surge of defiance, she held up the beautiful cover she had made. She explained why she made it, how it helped her feel a little more human, a little more herself. "I was ashamed for a long time," she said, looking straight into the lens. "I let other people's ignorance make me feel small, but I'm not ashamed anymore. This is part of me, and I'm done hiding." She ended the video by showing how the cover worked, her hands moving with practiced grace. It was the bravest thing she had ever done. Mira uploaded her video, not just to her small YouTube channel, but she also shared the link on her rarely used LinkedIn profile and a new public Instagram account she created for her crafts, now named Mira Designs. She didn't know what to expect. Maybe a few kind comments, maybe nothing. She turned off her phone notifications, her heart pounding, and tried to distract herself with knitting. What happened next was beyond her wildest dreams. The video started to spread. First among other chronic illness communities, then wider. People shared it with messages of support. So brave. Beautiful designs. Thank you for sharing your story. Her quiet honesty, her vulnerability, and her beautiful practical solution resonated with thousands. On LinkedIn, professionals in healthcare and fashion started to notice. Comments poured in praising her innovative approach to a common challenge. Then, a message popped up in her Instagram direct messages. It was from the CEO of Aura Health, a well-known wellness and accessible design brand. The CEO, a woman named Ms. Evans, had seen her video after it was shared by one of her own designers. Ms. Evans wrote that she was incredibly moved by Myra's story and deeply impressed by her talent and ingenuity. She said Myra's designs were exactly what the world needed: products made with empathy and beauty. She wanted to talk. A few days later, after a series of excited emails and a video call where Ms. Evans was warm and enthusiastic, Myra found herself walking back into her old office building. But this time, she wasn't going to her small, gray cubicle. She was escorted by Ms. Evans' assistant to the large, airy conference room on the top floor, the one usually reserved for important clients. Ms. Evans wanted Myra to present her designs to her executive team. As Myra set up her samples, a range of beautifully crafted medical gear covers in different colors and styles, she saw Nina walk past the glass-walled conference room. Nina stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes widening in disbelief as she saw Myra, looking poised and confident, shaking hands with the CEO of Aura Health. Nina's jaw literally dropped. There was no smirk on her face now, only pure, unadulterated shock. Myra met Nina's gaze for a brief moment, offering a small, polite nod, then turned her attention back to Ms. Evans, a quiet sense of triumph warming her from the inside out. The junior designer she had sometimes quietly helped with software tips caught her eye from down the hall and gave her an encouraging thumbs up. Myra smiled, truly smiled. The world felt full of possibilities. The presentation was a success. Ms. Evans and her team loved Myra's designs, her story, and her vision. They offered her a partnership to develop a line of fashionable and functional medical accessories under the Aura Health brand, with Myra as the lead designer. A few weeks later, Myra went live on Instagram. This time, she wasn't alone. Beside her, beaming, was Tina, her first inspiration. Together, they announced the launch of their new brand collaboration, Myra and Tina's Comfort Covers, a special collection by Aura Health. Tina, now an official youth ambassador for the line, proudly showed off the new cover Myra had designed especially for her. Bright pink with little silver stars. We wanted to create something that helps people feel good, even when their bodies are going through hard times, Myra said, her voice clear and confident, speaking to the thousands watching. Thank you to everyone who shared my story, who sent messages of support. You gave me the courage to keep going. The comments section flooded with congratulations. Then one comment stood out. It was from Nina. Myra, it read, I am so deeply sorry for how I treated you. There's no excuse for my behavior. Your strength and talent are amazing. I truly apologize. Myra read it, took a slow breath, and nodded. It was a start. Myra looked at Tina, then back at the camera, a gentle smile on her face. She picked up one of her designs, a soft, beautifully knitted port cover. Remember, she said, her voice filled with warmth and hard-won wisdom, you're not weak for needing help or for having a body that works differently. You're strong for finding your own ways to create, to adapt, and to shine through it all. The journey had been painful, but Myra had found her voice, her purpose, and had turned her pain into something beautiful, something that would help so many others feel seen and understood.